Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It has been a long time since we've done one of these. We hit 300,000 subscribers, which is a massive milestone. And me and Salma are very grateful for your support. And so we wanted to do a Q&A, talk to you so you can get to know us, know more about the channel, and I guess find out more about the food we love. And yeah, so we have about 50 questions to answer, right? Mm-hmm. So before we get started though, I just wanted to introduce Salma for those of you who have never met her. Salma is my wife and she's also the brains behind the channel. So she has the incredible palate that manages to take every recipe from being 95% of the way there to 100% of the way there. And yeah, you're a pretty good recipe developer, aren't you?
I mean, I guess.
I guess, yeah, she's a good recipe developer. So she is honestly the one who's able to make the channel come alive. We wanted to get started on the questions and we've got a lot of them, so let's get on it.
Okay, first question is, how do you and Salma balance having full-time jobs and this channel and stay motivated while avoiding burnout?
We don't. I burn out a lot. I kind of get overwhelmed often. It's difficult, but the thing is, you know, we have each other to support. Our day jobs themselves can really be stressful, and then this on top of it is quite a lot of extra work. But honestly, I think it's the comments and like people trying our food that really makes it fun and makes it easy for us to carry on. Honestly, like if I could choose between the two, I would definitely choose YouTube because I really love making these videos. It's just like after a long day of work, it is exhausting and it is hard to like get up and film. Yeah, there's been lots of days where I've just given up on filming like at like 7 p.m. and I'm just like, no, I'm not gonna do it. But yeah, what about you?
It's difficult. It's very overwhelming. It can be very overwhelming, but hopefully not for long.
Yeah.
I mean, at least for me, in a couple of months, I'll be doing this full time and I hope it will get easier.
Yeah, so Salma's finishing her PhD and then after that, it should mean she has more time to spend on the channel. There'll be a lot more videos with more complex recipes in them again, but also some fun things, some things to try out, and we can both be on camera again together, right?
Yeah. So there have been a lot of questions about substitutions and how to veganize certain dishes and so on. And one of which was, have you ever used seitan to veganize any of your favorite meat dishes? I wonder what your approach would be to replicate the flavors of a dish with seitan.
So when it comes to replicating dishes and veganizing them, right, I generally take this approach. I won't necessarily make a dish myself a non-traditional way, but if you eat a non-traditional diet, then I think you can kind of familiarize yourself with the same techniques and just apply them to any dish, right? So if you're making a dish that contains mincemeat, using something like a TVP, right, or like finely chopped, you know, meat replacement or anything like that, you can kind of just replace the mincemeat or even like sometimes even mushrooms, and it works. So that is a good way to veganize certain dishes. Another thing would be if it's got like a marinade or if it's got something like that, try and choose a protein, like a vegan protein, that can actually absorb the marinade and actually like get coated well. Try and choose a protein that will convert well. And for the most part, you just follow the recipe in the same way. Obviously, cooking times are gonna differ, but you're the expert, not me. And so it's kind of like, once you familiarize yourself with that protein, you know how to cook it, just, you know, substitute it and replace the steps that are necessary.
Yeah, I think you were spot on with the technique. It's all about the technique. So what you would normally do with a meat in a certain dish, you would end up doing with a meat replacement or protein replacement. So for example, if you were taking the beef version of the maklouba, the one with the aubergine, you would cook the seitan the same way that you would cook the meats, and then you would integrate it into the dish. I think it's very easy to veganize a lot of the dishes that we do.
Yeah.
With very few exceptions.
Yeah. I think honestly, I think replacing meat is generally quite easy as long as you just know how to cook the replacement that you're using. If you need to reduce the cooking time, if you need to fry it or do something to it before you cook it, then you just go and do that, right? Familiarize yourself with the usage of that vegan protein and then switch it into the food that you're going to make, rather than trying to just put it into the recipe and see if it works. Other than that though, it tends to just come together and work the same as the regular recipe. So we got a bunch of questions about our favorite weeknight meals and easy things to make during the week. What are yours, Salma?
I think it would be salmon. Salmon, we usually make salmon in the oven. It takes about 12 minutes and it tastes amazing. Super easy to make. What you?
Personally, I like rice dishes and I like kind of like noodle dishes. I am not a big fan of pasta. Like I eat it, but I honestly feel pasta is very overrated. So
yeah, we don't eat much pasta in this house.
We honestly don't, yeah. But like a lot of the time what we'll do is we'll have a protein which goes in the oven. So like chicken or salmon or something like that. Very simple coating. And then we'll have some sort of carb next to it. Usually when we're trying to be healthy, it's like sweet potatoes, peppers, broccoli, asparagus, something like that. Some sort of veg next to it, some carb. Usually we don't always have a carb even, right? And then a salad. That's just like a standard thing. Because if there's two of us in the kitchen, if we first of all stick the meat in the oven and then we get started on the veg and the salad, usually we can be done with the whole meal in like 20 minutes. End to end, right? And so it's really, really quick during the week. For Middle Eastern dishes though, like if I was looking for a quick, easy Middle Eastern dish, I'd probably do fool maybe, or some sort of grilled chicken.
Feteer bitingen.
Feteer bitingen,
comes together in 30 minutes.
Yeah, like an aubergine feta. It's really easy, comes together really quick. And anything really with a tahini sauce. We tend to just use a tahini sauce to like make any dish taste Middle Eastern, and it works pretty well.
Okay, what made you decide you wanted to start a channel? It seems like so much work, but it's so appreciated.
Lockdown. No, honestly. I actually wanted to start the channel way before lockdown, but I tried to film a video and it almost set the kitchen on fire. This is like 2 years before lockdown. And then, yeah, I've always loved food. And when lockdown happened, it kind of just gave me the opportunity to be at home more and to try things out. And honestly, I felt like if I wasn't going to do it now, then when would I? And like me and Salma, we always used to host lots of our friends over quite often, like maybe I'd say once every few months for like Middle Eastern food. And when lockdown happened, obviously we couldn't host people, but also at the same time, everyone we knew was kind of stuck at home and the people who don't know how to cook were kind of starting to struggle a bit. And it was kind of like our way of like showing our friends and people how to cook the Middle Eastern food that we are kind of used to. But also, yeah, kind of just giving us an opportunity to experiment and try different things so we don't get bored. And Selma's like, the whole time, Selma's been like really excited about experimenting with things on it. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I for sure get a lot less voice notes about recipes.
Yeah.
I don't have to tell people what to do.
Yeah, just send them the link.
Just send them the link. But yeah, it's also about sharing the cultural part of, you know, food. One thing that made me feel more at home here is hosting everyone, making the food we love, and we all gathered around the food that we we grew up having, and sharing that kind of love through food resonated so well, and we thought, why not share it with more people?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for the most part, people don't know a lot about Middle Eastern culture. Like, they will know a lot about many other cultures through food, but Middle Eastern food is very underrepresented, I'd say. So it's a good thing to get that out there and show people. And this was a bit of a loaded question. So what are some of your favorite cuisines other than your own to cook at home? And day to day, who cooks more, or do you cook together? Do you want to answer the second part first?
Do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I mean, Selma cooks more, mainly because I'm very busy, but also because I'm quite lazy. Yeah, Selma cooks a lot more. She's the better cook, so honestly, like, I kind of would prefer for her to cook more anyway. But we do tend to stand together in the kitchen, like when we're cooking. You know, someone I'll do a lot of prep because I like to do things with my knives. But yeah.
I mean, that prep only comes when we're hosting.
Yeah, sure.
But not during the week.
Maybe.
And ironically, we work really well in the kitchen together. People usually prefer to work alone in the kitchen, but we actually make a great team in the kitchen. We just know what the other person wants, and we tend to not be in each other's way. Yeah,
I'm definitely the sous chef though, so like it's very much asking someone what she wants help with and helping her with that. In terms of cuisines, though, I think I really like to cook East Asian cuisines a lot, and cook things like Chinese food, Japanese food. But honestly, like with YouTube, I feel like I have a lot less time to actually try things that I want to try. I used to be a lot more adventurous with trying things, and now it's just a matter of, oh, I'm kind of bored of eating the same things. Let me try something different. Like, I used to love cooking different foods, even Malay foods, Indonesian food, right? But I feel like I just don't have the time for that anymore. What about you, Selma?
I mean, I don't know what cuisine I cook. I just make things on the go,
Yeah.
and I don't really cook a specific cuisine. I just, throw a bunch of things together that I think would taste good, and I mean, they usually end up tasting good.
Yeah.
But I definitely did start to cook a lot more Middle Eastern food for us at home on a weekly basis ever since we started the channel. So I would find a way to make a recipe a lot shorter, or take some hacks that I wouldn't normally take if I was cooking it for someone else. But for our weeknight meals, this is what I end up doing.
Yeah. And I think we do tend to follow kind of Middle Eastern, Mediterranean profile when
Definitely.
we are just throwing things together.
Yeah.
But it's not strictly like any particular country or anything like that. It's just whatever we feel like.
Ooh, this is a good one. It's a tough one as well. What dish would you recommend for someone getting into Middle Eastern cooking?
So I think I would recommend someone tries out a feta dish. So feta dishes have a base of dried bread or fried bread instead of rice. And I think they're very easy to throw together because it's kind of like a plate of nachos, but you got pita bread instead, right? And you can really just put anything on there. I think once you make a simple one with whatever food you like, let's say even if it's like bolognese or whatever stuff you've got, right? You can kind of start to think about introducing some flavors and spices to get you more Middle Eastern. So, if you make a tahini sauce or even like a tahini sour cream, right? And put that on top, or just some spiced minced beef or vegetables, there's so many different feta dishes that you can try. And they range from things that take 20 minutes, like an aubergine feta, to things that can take 2 to 3 hours, like a lamb feta, right? And they're all just varying levels of like technique and skill, but they also show you a lot about the textures and flavors of Middle Eastern food because they're very layered dishes. I find that compared to most other Middle Eastern food, the flavors are really distinct in each layer. And there's tons of them. So if you're vegan, if you want to eat meat, if you want to do something else, you can just find one that fits you, right? What about you, Salma?
I think feta is a very good idea, but it's a tough one because it really depends on what you're into. So if you want something that's more complex, you don't mind delving into into cooking something that's going to take hours, I would say dolma or one of these rice dishes. Actually, I think mendi would be a good one.
Yeah.
Because the flavors, it's like an explosion of flavor, except it's not overly spiced. I think it's very nice. It whips up together really quickly. I would say within an hour, like for the amount of flavor that you're getting. I think that's a very good time to flavor ratio.
Yeah.
But if you want something easy, I would say maybe a full dish.
Yeah.
That very easy, very quick to whip together, and it's all about the freshness. Like you'll come to see that all it needs is just a squeeze of lemon, a bit of chili, a bit of green chilies or green peppers, some tomatoes, onions, cumin, and you're good to go.
Full is really easy because you can get the cans of fava beans pretty much anywhere in the world because there's always Arabs in every country. And then it's just about some fresh ingredients.
Yep.
So that makes it really easy to put together. So besides cooking, are there any other ways you connect to your ethnic roots? Favorite Egyptian musicians, artists, things like that?
Oh, definitely music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of music that we listen to these days. What are we
Yeah.
listening to?
Karaoke for sure.
Yeah. Karaoke and Mashra Layla. They are, what are they? How would you describe them? They're like indie Arabic music,
I think a bit of like John Mayer in Arabic.
Yeah, kind of John Mayer, a bit on kind of like the script Mumford and Sons kind of thing. But then they also do more like Arabic general music where they're, you know, it's a bit different than Western music, I'd say.
A lot of old music too, like music that we used to hear during our childhood, and I think we're quite fixated on that at the moment.
Yeah, it's funny because as Arabs, a lot of the music we listen to is not from our parents' generation, but from like our grandparents' generation, from like even the like 1930s and 1940s. And it's weird because you listen to this music growing up and it's like one song is 20 minutes, right?
20 minutes.
20 minutes.
90 minutes.
Yeah, like some of them are that long. And you listen to it and you're like, oh, this is so boring. It's so old. And then as you grow up, you're kind of like, yeah, I get this. This is chill. This is cool. Yeah. And it's very timeless music as well. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of people who are growing up here in the West who still listen to like 1930s Western music and stuff. But yeah, I think that music is very timeless. And we watch a lot of TV as well. There's always like a bunch of like series that come up in Ramadan, which are like really good, and outside of Ramadan. So we watch those. Films as well. I find cinema in the Middle East is very funny generally. It's very comedic. So yeah, we stay in touch with that kind of stuff. We go regularly to the Middle East, or we try to go, even though it's been like, what, 4 years since you've been to Egypt now?
Yeah.
So it's been quite a while. But yeah, we tend to stay in touch with our roots and all that.
What are the top 3 spices I should have to cook Middle Eastern food?
So if we're talking top 3 spices and you can only choose 3 spices, I'm gonna say, rather than choose 3 spices which are distinct and they kind of, you can use either one, right, in a recipe, I'm going to try and choose 3 spices which go really, really well together, because when you use them in different ratios, they really make a dish taste good. So the first one is going to be Greek or Turkish oregano. And the reason I say Greek or Turkish is because it's very different than the regular oregano you get in supermarkets. It has such a strong flavor. It's the same one we use in Egypt, but it's just known as Greek oregano. I would then say sumac, and sumac because it is just, it's got that tart flavor. It's very different than most spices that people use. It makes your mouth salivate. Like right now, I'm kind of like drooling a bit, just thinking about it. I don't know why. And then the third one is going to be Aleppo pepper, because it adds a slightly sweet, slightly paprika-y heat to your dishes, and it's not crazy hot. Like there are some very hot varieties, but it's not crazy hot. And those 3, when used together, I find they can make so many dishes. They can make Turkish dishes, Syrian dishes. You can make Palestinian dishes by kind of removing the Aleppo chili. You can make more Lebanese dishes with a bit more sumac and a bit less of the oregano. You can make Egyptian dishes with just the oregano, right? You can make Turkish dishes with all 3, obviously. And yeah, it's a pretty good combination. What do you think?
Okay, mine would be different actually. I could probably live off just having black pepper, salt and black pepper at home, and I will make it taste Middle Eastern, right?
What about the non-regular spices that people won't have?
No, but here's the thing. Black pepper. If I can substitute a spice with something else, it would be onion. If you want anything to taste Middle Eastern, onion, just marinate with onions, right? So many recipes, we just marinate with onions, use salt and pepper, and it's an explosion of flavors. Like sometimes you need to let the actual food speak for itself and not drown it in spices. But anyways, I would say black pepper.
Yeah.
Sumac for sure. I love sumac. Cumin, definitely cumin. I would say cumin. So. Yeah, because the thing is, you can use cumin in so many different Middle Eastern dishes, but also non-Middle Eastern dishes. They work in Mexican food. They work in Chinese food. They work in so many different things, right? So black pepper in all its sorts. Again, I go back to black pepper. I love black pepper. Whether they're peppercorns.
Kilos of it.
Yeah, we do. We just ran through 250 grams of black pepper in the past 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, I think black pepper, sumac, and cumin.
Hey everyone, sorry for interrupting the Q&A. We got a lot of questions from all of you, and so we kind of had to split it into two parts. If you want to watch the second part and see all of these questions, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/MiddleEats, and you'll find the link to the video there. Thank you all for your support, and thank you for all the great questions. And now, back to the rest of them.
Okay, so this one's going to be a bit personal. I'll ask you this because I think we're going to say the same thing. We could probably do it on the count of three, right? So we'll go top one first.
Okay.
So what are the top three unforgivable sins when serving Middle Eastern food? And we'll go on the count of three, right?
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Pomegranate molasses.
Oh.
Okay. Different.
That was my third one, but yes. Pomegranate molasses on everything and anything. Oh my god.
It has its place, pomegranate molasses, and it works a lot in like Levantine recipes, so Syrian, Lebanese, Palestinian, Turkish food, right? But not on everything. There is this kind of trend of just putting pomegranate molasses on everything and calling it Middle Eastern, and that's not how it works. It's got a very distinct flavor, sweet and tart, and I feel like you take another Middle Eastern dish from North Africa or somewhere else, you put that on it, you ruin it. You absolutely ruin it.
I mean, I'm a traditionalist, okay? When it comes to food, the cooking that we do at home is not cuisine related, right? But I can't just go and say something is Egyptian, for example, and it has pomegranate molasses in it. Like, no, I'm sorry, but no, it just drives me mad that people can do that and say like, oh yeah, this mahshi is Egyptian. It's got pomegranate molasses in it. I'm like, no, it's not. Yeah. It's not.
It verges it too much to a more Syrian Lebanese style.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like, okay, well then it's just not Egyptian anymore. It's the flavor profile is shifted completely, right?
Yeah. And again, going off pomegranate molasses, putting pomegranate seeds on everything and calling it Middle Eastern.
Yeah.
Like, yep, let's garnish this dish. Let's throw a whole lot of pomegranate seeds on them and call it Middle Eastern. Like, no, sorry, no.
So you were saying stock.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So stock is a very, 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 very important or a very big component of Middle Eastern dishes. And when there are some dishes that you can actually substitute stock for, like I would say mahshi, for example, if you're doing any sort of dolma, just so in this case, it can easily be substituted. But then if we're talking about Molokhia and you come and you get me a stock cube and you dissolve it in some water, like, no, the Molokhia, the whole flavor of the Molokhia comes from the stock. So if you have a bad stock, your Molokhia is just going to be flavorless. And no, it's not the same. You just can't substitute it. And this is one of my pet peeves. Like, no.
Yeah, she's very passionate about her stock. I think if it's a matter of convenience, substituting it is fine, but I personally wouldn't do it. Like, I wouldn't do it. And I think we come from different schools of thought. I think it's fine to do, just to make things more convenient. No, but when we're talking about a dish, so a dish where stock is important to it, I think if you use ready-made stock, it's fine, but it's just not going to taste 10% as good as if you made your own fresh stock. And the problem is a lot of stock is not Middle Eastern stock. Middle Eastern stock tastes different from French stock, from Spanish stock, from something else, right? So if you are using a stock cube, the flavor profile of the stock is going to taste very different than if you were to make a fresh stock yourself.
That's very true.
Yeah.
That's very true.
One of my other pet peeves though is going to be calling a dish by a name and then completely changing what it is. And I think this is kind of a struggle. So you see this a lot in the food space, and I know I'm going to get a lot of hate from people for saying this, but there's a lot of creators who will cook a dish and will say this is X, right? And it's not X, it's not that food. It is a completely different dish which they've inspired by X, right? And if you say, hey, this is inspired by blah, 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 and you kind of go along the same general route, but you take a bit of creative liberty, then it's fine, right? But when you have a massive following and you say, this is X or this is inspired by X, and you completely change the dish.
Butcher it.
You butcher it, right? It's not related to it. And I feel like that's something that I really struggle with. It's unrelated to like Middle Eastern food, but it's just in terms of like, creation and stuff like that. I think my last unforgivable sin though is serving a tahini sauce with chicken shawarma because it should never happen. Tahini sauce does not go with chicken. It's garlic sauce for chicken and tahini with meat. That is how it works. No other way. It's unforgivable, okay? Now on that topic, there was a question from one of our patrons asking about Molokhia. So Molokhia is a jute leaf stew, and he's saying, I've heard rumors that Molokhia, which is commonly grown and eaten in Egypt, grows well in Europe, but it tastes bitter. And they're saying, I've never tasted it. Is there any truth to these rumors? So honestly, I have no clue, because first of all, we've never grown it. And at the same time, I've never actually brought fresh Molokhia. And the reason for that is because you need to chop the leaves very, very finely, and they're slimy, and there's a lot of work that goes into prepping the leaves to make the stew. I would say, 99% of Middle Eastern households buy the frozen stuff. So I don't know, but if you are in Europe or in the US, just try look for a Middle Eastern grocery store, and you can get the frozen packets of pre-chopped jute leaf, Molokhia, right? And just use that straight away. It will make your life easier. You know it's not going to taste bitter. I don't know if that's a rumor or not, but yeah, that simplifies things, doesn't it?
I mean, I had quite a lot of fresh Molokhia growing up, and I actually prefer the frozen one. And I prefer like non-frozen vegetables, but with Molokhia, I actually prefer the frozen ones.
All right, how did you get Maple? How long have you had her, and how old is she? We kind of kidnapped her. I mean, yes and no. So Maple is my sister's cat's baby, right? Yeah. She was born roughly right after me and Salma got married, so about 7 years ago. So she's 7 years old. I think it was like summer 2016.
Yeah, it was
so I think
like
it was
June, July.
June, July, yeah, something like that. We can't remember the exact dates. And she was living with my brother, and then my brother kind of wanted someone to take care of her, and so that's how she kind of came to live with us. And yeah,
it's been 6 years.
It's been 6 years, yeah. And she's our baby. It's very hot right now, so she's just like absolutely collapsed from the heat. I would bring her over to say hi, but she is just like fast asleep and trying to rest. But yeah, she's our fur baby.
How has the channel growing so much changed your life?
I'd say we get recognized and stopped in the street. It's a bit funny, like we can be in the most random of places, like on our high road, or like out shopping. I was at the supermarket the other day, and someone stopped me and was like, "Oh, you're the guy from YouTube." I think that's definitely been a big change. Yeah. I think also it's kind of given us a lot more direction on what we want to be doing long term. We want to be doing this full time if we can, but I mean, until we grow it into a sustainable business, it's not exactly possible right now. But I think also, like, I like that it's introduced us to like so many different foods that we probably wouldn't have tried otherwise. Like, going and trying some obscure Iranian or Iraqi dishes, or things that we probably never would have cooked, like, really complex Saudi dishes, or things like mandi, where, we're just used to eating them from restaurants and we've never cooked them ourselves. I think that's been a big part that has changed, and something that I've found really, really nice.
We've become a lot more busy. We definitely stopped hosting as much as we used to. And it definitely helped change, it definitely changed directions of at least career perspectives.
Yeah.
It just made me realize that having a 9-to-5 or even staying in academia is not what I want anymore. I could be doing something worthwhile as well, but it doesn't have to be science.
And I think it's really nice as well when you get those comments from people saying, "Oh yeah, I've really missed this dish and you've let me recreate it." It's just so satisfying. So I think there's that satisfaction that comes from being able to have an impact and help someone try something that they've wanted to have in a long time. When is a video on feteer coming? Okay, so feteer is, what is it? It's like a pie, but it's basically like a very thin pastry, which is massive. I'd say like the
super
size
flaky.
of, yeah, it's like super, super wide. And then what they do is they just fold it into each other. So imagine like phyllo dough, but it's buttery and it's like super thin. And it's complex to make, but we now finally have the space for it because like honestly, when they're doing it in Egypt, they like, it's like, imagine when someone's tossing a pizza dough, but it's like 10 times as big. That's kind of how big it is, and they stretch it out over a whole worktop. So we now finally have the space to
have the space to experiment. I promise you this is going to be something that we'll start working on as soon as I'm done submitting my thesis.
Yeah, and so when she is done, we might have the time to...
We've got the counter space right here.
Yeah, it's just, it is complex. It is a technical dish, so...
And we didn't have the space before. Yeah. We really did not have any counter space, so now that we do...
Yeah, we should be able to do it. So maybe in this year. So what Middle Eastern cuisines do you want to cover more in the future? You mentioned doing more Sudanese food, so I'm curious to hear more about it. Personally, one thing we haven't done anything from, and I really want to get into it, is Kurdish cuisine, because there is a lot of Kurdish cuisine that is just incredible, right? It's just, I don't speak Kurdish, neither does Salma, and like, the more obscure a language is, the harder it is to find authentic sources for the videos. But yeah, Kurdish cuisine is basically, it sits at that crossroads of Iranian cuisine, Iraqi cuisine, Levantine cuisine, and kind of like Turkish cuisine. So it's kind of like very flavorful. I don't know how to describe it, it's just very good. I want to see more about that. I do definitely want to see more Sudanese food as well. And then I really want to go more into Moroccan and North African cuisine, because there's just so much flavor there that we haven't really discovered.
Yep.
What about you?
Definitely North African, because I mean, it's a lot harder to actually develop recipes from North Africa, or at least from like Moroccan, Tunisian, Algerian, Libyan cuisine, because the language can be a bit of a barrier. So I tend to sway more to recipes that I would find easier to make, just because I'm really busy at the moment. But North African is definitely on the list, and Gulf recipes.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of food that I think we don't know anything about, and this is why I want to get into it. I'm quite curious to see what's there to offer.
Yeah, definitely.
What are the Middle Eastern snacks we should know about? What is the equivalent of nachos, pretzels, the sort of food you eat when you're watching sports?
This is cool because like there is actually stuff that we do eat. I think nuts are a big part of it. Like we eat a lot of nuts in the Middle East. I think people in the West don't realize how big a part of the Middle Eastern diet nuts are. So salted nuts, you will have your seeds. There's going to be pumpkin seeds, watermelon seeds, all sorts of other small seeds in a casing. Sunflower seeds, right? And those are generally just salted. Then there are walnuts, pistachios, peanuts. They do peanuts with the skin on, with like crystal salt. It's so salty, it's so bad for you, it's so good. I love that. Other than that, like we have like lots of like crackers as well, which we eat, which are like kind of like spiced crackers with different things on them.
I mean, in Egypt, they call them Chinese crackers.
They call them Chinese crackers. It's funny, actually, because all it is just like puffed rice crisps and things like that.
Yeah.
But they contain like, they're done with Middle Eastern spices and things. Popcorn, they eat a lot of. Then there's things like...
Fruits.
Yeah?
We eat a lot of fruits.
Fruits, yeah. A lot of fruit, especially in the summer.
Yeah,
Like right now, watermelon is like, it's right now watermelon season. The mango season starts in like a few weeks, so it's just about starting now.
Yeah.
And then other than that, it's like winter snacks. There is like sweet potato. That's a snack. It's a dessert actually. There is sahlab, which is basically like a
cornstarch drink.
Cornstarch drink. Yeah. It's milk and cornstarch basically. It's a pudding that you drink, right? Yeah. There is the hummus al-sham. Hummus al-sham is basically chickpeas in a lemony, spicy kind of broth. It's really good. We did these in the video. And it's really, and then sometimes some people will eat things like feteer even, which is kind of like pastries. There's a lot of pastries, like especially in North Africa as well, sweetened pastries and little round things that they eat.
Breadsticks.
And breadsticks, yeah. There's a lot of breadsticks and like European style bakery stuff, which has existed in the Middle East for a good, 100 years or so. So it's not uncommon for those to be a snack. Yeah. So there's this thing in Egypt which is kind of like a Dutch stroopwafel,
But it's so thin. It's
yeah,
so thin.
it's so crispy. It's like a wafer basically,
Yeah.
and in the middle is usually honey or a syrup, and it's not caramel,
Yeah.
and it's very Egyptian. We eat it on the beach. It's
Yeah.
just so good. But yeah, a lot of the stuff are kind of similar. The popcorn,
Juices.
yeah.
Juices.
Yeah,
Lot
juices.
of
We love
juices.
fruit juices. So there are fruit juice vendors everywhere, and they will blend up any fruit you want, from mangoes to bananas,
avocados.
yeah, to avocados to oranges on the
Yeah.
spot on the street.
Sugarcane.
And then shawarma. We love meat, right?
Yeah.
Shawarma spots are everywhere, and those are a snack. You go down in the middle of a football game and you go down and get like a shawarma or something. You run back upstairs and watch it, or continue watching it on this corner of the street. But yeah, that's kind of what we eat.
Okay, a bit of a controversial question. What was the most surprising, disgusting food you've seen from the Middle East?
I remember going to someone's house when I was younger. I can't remember whose house it was, but it was Eid, I think. And I walked in and there was like a sheep's head on the table, like it was cooked. It's just not the nicest thing to see as a kid. But surprising, I would probably say, there is a Kurdish rice dish where they basically cook rice and they add pomegranate molasses to it. And I was actually really surprised when I heard about it, but then I was like, you know what? For certain things, I think that would be really good. Like, can you imagine like the sweet and sour flavor of it? And then there are just so many interesting stews in Iran, which I really want to try. And then the other last surprising thing is just Tunisian cuisine, because it has like the same two ingredients in most dishes, canned tuna and boiled eggs. So yeah, it was surprising because when we were trying to look for dishes, it was hard to find something that didn't have those in it, right?
Yeah, me don't like tuna.
I don't like tuna, and I don't like boiled eggs.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, it was a bit of a surprising thing to find out. What about you?
I think it's the whole tuna and eggs thing with Tunisian food.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's because we don't know better. We haven't been there, but it just seems that a lot of things involve tuna there. I mean, if you have any sources for Tunisian cooking, then that would be great. Are you considering getting a website for the recipes anytime soon? Yes, we have been.
Yeah.
We've been trying really hard, but it's just, we have so much
Yeah.
to do. We just haven't gotten around to it.
Yeah, I mean, like we said earlier, we both work full-time jobs, so YouTube is another full-time job and a half on top. And I think having a website is also a lot of work. We can try and outsource it, but it doesn't always work out the way you want to. And we've tried to do that a couple of times and it hasn't always worked. So once we have a bit more time, so once Summer finishes her PhD, we are going to try and make some changes, try and get the recipes online so that it's easier for you to follow them and read them and look for things rather than going through YouTube. Cool.
Why aren't there more English-speaking Middle Eastern cooking channels on YouTube?
I think partly there is a weird thing that we have in the Middle East where we kind of like look outwards and look at Western culture as being a lot better than Middle Eastern culture. So you'll find that there's a lot of new generation Middle Easterners who don't cook any Middle Eastern food, or they don't even eat it at all, right? That's one part in terms of like culture. The second part is I think it's Middle Eastern food takes a lot of time to make. It is very much a cuisine that relies on there being a matriarch at home who is spending hours and hours and hours cooking every day. I mean, the joke is that for every Middle Eastern recipe, for every Egyptian recipe at least, you start the recipe by boiling a chicken, right? And the thing is, not a lot of people have time for that. I think also the other thing is, it's difficult to find sources for accurate recipes for Middle Eastern food. Because Middle Eastern food is so varied, but also at the same time, we aren't great at measuring things, which is kind of why we have been doing this channel, because to measure things, you kind of need to try the recipes, test them, develop them, and then kind of put them together. And that is honestly a ton of work, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Trying to decipher what a recipe is from my mom is like, you know, rocket science.
Yeah. Now, there are actually a lot of people doing short form content that is really good. One of our friends, Akram Cooks, he does Yemeni cuisine, and his recipes are fantastic. He's a chef in New York.
The Zorobian recipe is his.
And then there's a guy, I can't remember his name, he does Iranian food on TikTok, and his food always looks so good. And there's a bunch of different creators out there who make really good looking food. There are some people who do really good videos in Arabic as well, super highly technical, but it's just hard to find those English speaking ones. And so I think we kind of have a monopoly on it at the moment, unintentionally. Okay, for one day you are forbidden to eat any food with Middle Eastern roots. What are you having for breakfast, lunch and dinner?
Probably have avocado on toast with a soft boiled egg on top.
Okay, lunch?
Lunch, some sort of salad. I love loaded salads.
Yeah.
Dinner, salmon.
Salmon, okay.
Salmon.
I think for me, I don't really like breakfast, but I like poached eggs, so probably eggs Benedict. I think for lunch, I really like sandwiches, like loaded sandwiches. So there's one I do which is bresaola, burrata, rocket, sun-dried tomatoes in like an olive ciabatta bread. It's so good. And then for dinner, it would probably be some form of noodles, so maybe, and this is going to sound funny, but I absolutely love the Indomie mee goreng noodles, or maybe I would do something like fried chicken burger or chicken wings. Flipping love chicken wings. I haven't made any in forever.
Did someone inspire you to get into cooking?
I think my grandma really inspired me. My grandma was old when I first met her, like quite old. She passed away, I think, 2 years ago during COVID or something like that. But she was always in the kitchen. And I remember going to her house as a kid. We used to go every Friday, and there would always be a spread on the table. And then during holidays, the table would be packed and there would be like so many people coming over. And it was always so surprising to see how much food came out of there. And like, my grandma herself didn't used to stand in the kitchen a lot as she was older, but she used to sit there and watch as, you know, people were cooking and keep an eye on them to make sure the food came out. And honestly, I think that was kind of my first introduction to Middle Eastern cooking, that kind of taught me about loving cooking and loving Middle Eastern food. What about you?
So I come from a family of very good home cooks. So.
She's not lying, they're brilliant.
My mom, my grandma, they were all fantastic cooks. I mean, so good. And then when I moved away from Egypt, I just did not have access to that good food anymore. So I had no other option besides, you know, cooking it myself. And that's how I started cooking.
I've tasted both their cooking. Both their cooking is fantastic. You're kind of like taking it a step further, even better. But yeah, even your mom says that, so. Yeah, Salma is a fantastic cook, and hopefully we're also inspiring you guys to cook some food. If you could only eat one cuisine beside your birth cuisine, what would it be? If you could live in one country for the rest of your life, what country would it be? This is kind of my get out of jail free card, possibly, in that I would say American cuisine, because there is American Chinese cuisine, American Italian cuisine, Greek American cuisine, and then there's like Southern American cuisine, so maybe that's a get out of jail free card. But honestly, I think my cuisine that I would eat other than Egyptian would be Iraqi cuisine. I think it is just incredible. And if you're kind of counting Iraq as Middle Eastern cuisine, you're kind of asking me, okay, maybe not Middle Eastern, then I would say do something like Afghani cuisine, because their food is really good, really flavorful. Or Indian cuisine. I really like Indian food.
Okay, this is very tough because I would say Mediterranean. I know Mediterranean is not a specific cuisine, right? I can't go for Italian because I'm not a huge fan of pasta. I know they do other foods, but I like the freshness that you get. Oh.
If it was both of us together, I would probably say Japanese cuisine, right?
No.
No?
No. You know what? It would be Thai.
Thai? I could do
Definitely Thai.
I could do Thai. Yeah.
Thai, yeah.
There is a lot of variation in Thai cuisine, and it is so complex. and also at the same time sometimes so simple, and it's got spicy and non-spicy stuff. So yeah, I think we could definitely do that. If we could live in one country, where would it be? I would probably say Dubai. Dubai, like, which is part of the UAE. So, or maybe even Abu Dhabi, which is quieter than Dubai. You have access to all the foods of the world, all of the big restaurants and all of the smaller restaurants. It is extremely multicultural, like London. Every ingredient you could possibly think of is there, right? At the same time, life is a slower pace than it is here in the UK. The weather is great 6 months of the year. It's okay 3 months of the year, and absolute hell 3 months of the year. But also I think it's a safe space. There is a lot of like activities to do with kids. We don't have kids at the moment, but if we did have kids, there's a lot you could do with kids there, and it's really safe there. You can leave your doors unlocked. You don't have to worry about things. And obviously, like, as much as like the UK is like a good place to live, at the same time, it doesn't feel safe anymore. It doesn't feel like home anymore. And I don't see that things are improving here at all for anyone. And yeah, to me, I would say probably Dubai.
I forgot a very important point.
What?
Beach.
And there's beaches, yeah.
All year round.
Yeah.
What's your favorite dish of all time?
Ooh, my favorite dish of all time is Egyptian fatta. It is toasted bread with rice. There's a vinegar and garlic sauce, and then there is lamb that is boiled and then fried to just give it a bit of browning. It is very strange, but it is incredible. It is such a good flavor bomb. What is yours?
I actually do not have a favorite dish. It's very hard for me to choose a favorite dish, but if I can choose a favorite ingredient, that would be potatoes. I'd eat potatoes any time of day.
Salma loves mashed potatoes.
No, just potatoes.
Just potatoes
I love
and cheese.
potatoes. Oh, and cheese.
Yeah, those are the two things she could never live without.
Yeah, they don't have to be together, but like, yeah.
Yeah.
I love potatoes.
So the cameras keep overheating, so we're just going to kind of fly through a bunch of questions now. What tools or spices in your kitchen do you think are absolute necessity?
So definitely a garlic mincer or microplane, a good knife,
Yeah.
and
A whisk and some spatulas,
a
definitely.
very good whisk.
Wooden spoons. You can get away with just having some basic pots and pans for the most part, but try and get at least one heavy bottomed frying pan for cooking.
Yep.
Spices, salt, pepper, some sort of chili flakes, cumin maybe, sumac, and then I would say at least
Good stock cubes.
Yeah, good stock cubes, 1 or 2 types of vinegar, and then rice.
Yep.
You can make a lot of dishes with just that.
Yep.
Yeah, onions, plenty and plenty of onions if you're cooking Middle Eastern food. Paprika, and then yeah, I would say those are good bunch of. I would say those are a good bunch of basics to have. Will we ever do a cooking class? Maybe there might be one coming online very soon. We've actually got a project we've been working on for a while, so when that's launched, you'll hear a bit more about it. But in person, it would be complex, right?
Yeah.
So
Maybe a supper club.
maybe a supper club. That's something we've thought about.
If people really want that, then we could
It's
be
not going
open
to
to
be cheap,
that.
right? It's not going to be cheap. Yeah, we'll figure something out. Will we ever show you how to make phyllo dough for baklava? Possibly. Yeah, I think I would like to try it, but I think I would try it as an experiment because I want to really learn how it's made. But it is highly complex. So if you want a really technical instructions, you probably are better off looking at a video from an expert rather than from me because I've never made it before. If you live in a rural area, what's the best way to get spices? I actually find eBay is fantastic for getting obscure spices and ingredients because there are sellers from all over the world and they'll ship to you. Other than eBay, Etsy is also a good option. And yeah, if you go on eBay, try it in different regions as well. So try eBay the US, try eBay in the UK or in France or wherever else it's located, because the stores that are available are different, but you can generally get it shipped to other places. I think that's a very good way to get high quality spices. We've ordered a bunch of stuff from there and it's always been good, apart from one thing, which came very, very late and very bad quality, but you know, it's a lot cheaper. Would it be bad to ask for a perfect doner kebab recipe? No, it's not bad. Yes.
It's been in the works for a while.
Yeah, the thing is, doner kebab is complex. You need to shave it super thin. You need to cook it a certain way, but it will happen. In the meantime, I would watch Rafika's video. She has a video on doner kebab, which looks really good. So check that out if you haven't seen it. And then this last question is, how did you meet? We met in university in Egypt. I was studying computer science and you were studying biology. And yeah, we met in our first semester there. And yeah, we've kind of been together for ever since then almost. Yeah,
13 years.
13 years. That is a long time. And we got married about seven years ago. Yeah, 7 years ago.
7 years in July, yep.
Yeah, and that is us. So I hope you enjoyed all those questions. That was a lot of questions to get through. If you want to see another Q&A, let us know. And if you want to support the channel, make sure to go on Patreon and you can sign up there. You can chat with us in Discord. But thank you all very much for your support. Thank you for getting us to 300,000 subscribers. And thank you for all of your comments. Even if we don't reply, we do read them. So yeah, just thank you all so much for supporting us. And you'll be seeing a lot more of Selma soon, so keep an eye out for that and stay excited because we're putting a lot of pressure on her to make things good. And for those of you who stayed to the end, let's do one of those cat show videos. This is a maple. It is a multicolored Persian tabby kind of thing. It is a house cat, as you can see, well-rounded face, very cute, very fluffy, and she's absolutely burning up because of the heat. Thank you so much for watching and we'll see you again soon. Bye.